Cadam Samuels is a writer, an activist, a music teacher, and composer embracing many musical genres. He's founder of Vox Vegana, an international vegan music collaborative project, and Vystopia Anonymous, a safe online haven for vegans of all stripes. Thank you so much for taking this time to speak with us today, Aaron.
It is so much my pleasure and honor to be here, Janine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm always interested to know how people find the vegan path. How did that happen for you?
How far back should I go?
As far back as you want to go.
Okay. um, so I became vegetarian actually before I even left high school, um, for the same reason that a lot of people go vegetarian, thinking that it was me doing right by the animals, and I was vegetarian probably, well, I mean, ever since then up until uh, this year, and uh, where when I became vegan. But I actually thought that I was vegan 3 years ago. One of the reasons that I made the transition was because I was on a dating site called veggieconnection.com, and there were like these various echelons of plant-based eaters, including semi-vegetarian all the way at the bottom, right up all the way to the top was like a fruitarian or something like that. um, and there was a woman on there that I was interested in who was a raw vegan, and I was like, okay, I suppose maybe I should finally make this transition. And with a little assistance from some information given to me by my brother, who is not even a vegan, I decided to make that change. But I was still doing honey up until uh, like maybe February or March of this year. So mostly vegan is not even a term I like to use, but that's what I was for the past 3 years, and then fully vegan this year.
Interesting. So had you done the whole clothing shift and everything?
The clothing shift, yeah. For the most part, I I would say that the level of awareness that I have now, this year 2020, compared to even just last year, is profoundly different. I may have actually purchased something that was leather in the past 3 years, uh, but yeah, no more for
So
that.
now it's a more I think we all do that, right? When we're first vegan and we just don't realize, you don't even realize how all pervasive the animal ingredients list is, and reading labels and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's a progression, and we got to forgive ourselves for those mistakes along the way. But now
Yeah.
you're devoted to making sure every purchase is fully vegan, no cruelty, no animal
Yeah.
testing, all of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, almost to the point of hypervigilance, which I think is sort of prudent, considering the circumstances we're in as a world. But somebody posted on Facebook this app called Cruelty Cutter, which is really cool. It's this app you can buy that you can actually, scan the barcode of a product that you're going to buy to find out if it's cruelty free or not, which is really cool.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been using that when I go to buy, my toiletries and what have you.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I'm very careful these days.
Right on. And so I'm curious about the information that your non-vegetarian brother gave you that had an impact.
It was just a suggestion, actually. We didn't get deep into the conversation. Um, he just happened to say that the dairy industry is arguably worse than the meat industry, and just the suggestion of that made me go, "Huh, yeah." And I've since done a significant amount of research on that, and it's true. It's much worse. I mean, they're both horrible atrocities, but yeah, I don't need to tell you. the dairy industry is scary. Dairy is scary.
Dairy's scary. Yeah. And then what was it about so this person that you met on the on online
Yeah.
then inspired you to, was that when you gave up on honey?
No, she was she, technically speaking, I mean, she considered herself a raw vegan, and she was most definitely raw, um, and for the most part vegan. But honey was a big part of her diet. Like she ate a
Mm.
lot of honey, and so I did too. And I didn't really consider it because I guess truth be told, the main reason I was being vegan at that point was to impress her and to be on the same page as her. And so being on the same page as her, I didn't really even consider what we put bees through. I just kind of just went along with what she was doing.
And so where's she at now?
uh I don't know
Don't know.
exactly. I would assume that she's gone back to her little island off of the coast of Thailand. That's where she was living when we first met.
Okay. All right. So, okay. It's always interesting the different people that we meet along the journey and whether we stay on the journey or not. And that's just part of life, isn't it? And
Yeah, truly.
yeah, that's part of the Vystopia situation that's where we met. And I really want to
Yeah.
talk a lot about your music, but before we do that, maybe while we're on the subject of vegans and the challenges that we face just psychologically in dealing with our family and friends and stuff, what drew you to to create Vystopia Anonymous?
Yeah. Um, so, earlier this year, as I mentioned, I made the final transition, and that happened like almost simultaneously to the whole lockdown situation, and um, that was that gave a lot of us an opportunity to do a lot of thinking, um, which has its upsides and downsides. And in that time that was given to me, because of the lockdown, I started doing a lot of research. I started learning more and more about the horrors of animal agribusiness, and and I started to be profoundly affected by it emotionally. Um, and I don't remember exactly if I was looking for it or what, but somebody on Facebook again made the suggestion that I might benefit from this idea of dystopia, a term that was coined by Claire Mann, who authored a book by the same title. And the more I started reading up on it, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going through. This is my experience. Um, and then shortly thereafter, I discovered this Vystopia support group, which is another amazing Facebook community, where people post, talking about their experiences with Vystopia, and um, people support each other. It's a lovely group. There's so much love and support within that community. Um, so I became a regular participant there. And then I don't even remember exactly why, but I thought, maybe some of these people would like to get together on a Zoom conference call. Um, Maybe that would be a way that they could feel even more supported, more connected to other people going through the same thing. And so that's when I put together Vystopia Anonymous, uh, which is specifically for that purpose, just for people who are experiencing dystopia to get together and have meetings, um, and that's been going on ever since. What, like 3 or 4 months now, something like that.
Cool. It's a
Yeah.
great group. And how, for people who maybe don't understand what Vystopia is, how would you describe it?
Ooh, so there's a great definition that I should probably learn word for word that Claire has put up on her website, which you can go find. If you go, I think her website is veganpsychologist.com or something like that. But if you look for Claire Mann, um, you'll find her, and she gives a great definition for dystopia. But uh, I'll try to paraphrase. It's it's um, it's this emotional shift that takes place for an individual once they become fully aware of the Holocaust that's happening to animals on this planet. Um, and it manifests in a, a myriad of ways, including sadness and anger and anxiety and alienation. Um, and I've, you know, I would say, and it's different for, different people. Um, there's various levels and various ways that it manifests. But I've probably gone through just about all of those to varying degrees throughout this entire year. Um, and uh, and it's really nice to have other people to talk to who get that. So it's been really good for me too to have Vystopia Anonymous.
Yeah, I find it very, very helpful. And is so is Vox Vegana a response to the dystopia, or did that start prior to, when did that come to be?
Yeah. So Vox Vegana, um, that actually got started right before the lockdown. I have a very fond memory of meeting with three people that I'd never met before, and they were right here in my space at Unit B in Edmonds, Washington. And there were four of us, and managed to have one of each like choral section. We had a soprano, an alto, a tenor, and a bass. I'm not a true bass, but I was able to sing the bass parts that I wrote for this song, the inaugural song for Vox Vegana. It was called "The Future Is Vegan," and I'm gonna try to play that for you today.
Cool.
Um, and that was actually a response to uh, having been in a choir in the winter season of, well, I guess you would call it the fall season of 2019. A wonderful choir called the Finney Ridge Chorus, Finney Ridge Community Chorus, something like that. Yeah. Great group of people. There were like 90 singers, huge group. And we did it pretty much every choir does a holiday performance, which means that pretty much every choir starts singing holiday music in September. um, I started late, but I managed to play catch up, and we did one, two, I think we did three separate performances, including one called Figgy Pudding, which is really cool, where you go, all these a cappella choirs go downtown Seattle in the business district, and all the streets get closed down. And there are just these little stations of a cappella choirs set up all over, and people walk around and listen to everybody else sing these a cappella songs. And they raise money for the elderly and the hungry with Pike Place Market. Um, and that was amazing. I'd never even been to Figgy Pudding, and suddenly I was there performing in it, which was so cool. Um, and this choir also, they would take a portion, I think a pretty sizable portion of their money, and send it to help with the schools, I believe, in Haiti.
Hmm.
So they were doing, this philanthropic work as well, which was really cool. But then there would be these, like, parties and breakfasts and stuff that I was just like, don't think I'm gonna go because it's gonna bum me out because there's gonna be all this consumption of what we take from the animals, and I don't want to be there for that. Um, so when that season ended, I was like, hey, what if I start my own choir and it's like vegan, and then I never have to worry about that again. In fact, we could be not only all vegan, but we could like sing about vegan stuff and maybe even like raise money for sanctuaries. And so that's when I put together Vox Vegana. And the original intention was for it to be a choral group. It has since diversified, almost more out of necessity than anything else, because like you can't get a bunch of people together these days to sing. Um, it's not even allowed. So it became instead this sort of, you know, by mail collaboration, uh, and you know, there was a member that joined um, pretty early after I started the Facebook page, who lives in Bhopal, India. And then but then I noticed she like canceled her membership. And I was like, sent her a message. I was like, hey, what's up? Don't you want to be in my group? And she's like, oh yeah, I do. But I noticed you're in Seattle. So I probably can't, you know, that commute's going to be a little rough. And I was like, yeah, I get that, but maybe we can still work together. And we did. We've worked together a couple of times, several times actually, various projects. The first one, she wrote a bunch of lyrics and she posted it on the Vox Vegana page, and I was like, those are actually really good. Do you mind if I try to write some music for it? And I did. And I wrote two vocal lines, you know, like a harmony part, like a duet, and she ended up singing one of the parts to it. And that song is called "The Cost of Cruelty," and you can find that on the Vox Vegana page as well.
And so are you mostly a composer of music then rather than lyrics, Aaron?
I kind of do it all, you
Okay.
know. I would say, you know, I mean, um, I would say probably composing and songwriting are the parts of the music pursuit that I feel closest to my heart. Um, but yeah, I love writing lyrics. I love writing music. I love teaching music. I love performing music. I love recording music. I do everything music essentially.
And you're amazingly talented, I feel. I just was astounded when I found some of your recordings from different Lions and Samuels and
Yeah.
the singing for the seniors that you've been doing. I know seniors love that music. And I love the story also on your website about how when you just first discovered the piano. Can you tell us that story? What
When I first,
you were playing the piano and you were playing one note and then your mom
oh
inspired you?
yeah, um, uh, the one I gave that story on my website, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just I have this very profound memory in my head of um, sitting down at the piano. Must have been one of the very first times that I ever did that.
So how old were
And
you at this point?
uh, well, I had my first piano lesson when I was 4, so I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 when I sat down at the piano for the first time. And I put both hands on the piano, and I put like one finger over here and one finger over here, and I played these two notes at the same time, and I was just like blown away that I could create like two different notes at the same time that sounded good together. Um, that fascinated me. Um,
On your
and
website, you attribute that to your mom, as I recall. You were playing one note, and then your mom said, "Hey, what if you try it with your second hand as well?" Am I remembering that right?
Maybe. I'm not, I'm
Oh.
not sure. That may have been how it happened. I don't really remember, but I do have memories of my mother playing the piano, like maybe like once for me. And in my head, she's playing the Minute Waltz by Chopin. Um, uh, but like, yeah, like shortly after that, like she just, I never saw her sit at the piano again.
Huh.
I have more memories of her playing the guitar, uh, for like family sing-alongs in the living room. Um, but yeah, music has been, as far as music, like a full musical pursuit. Like I'm the person in the family that's doing that. My brother is also incredibly musical, um, and it's more of a hobby pastime for him at this point. But we have played many shows together as well. Even
Hmm.
at the retirement communities, we played for like 2.5, 3 years together.
They're a great audience, aren't they?
Oh man, the best, the absolute best audience that I've ever played for, hands
Them,
down.
and I used to work with folks with developmental differences, disabilities, and
Yeah,
they too are just a fantastic audience. And and there's no ego. They if they want to dance, they'll get up and dance, and get
yeah,
very excited about music. And
yeah.
yeah, well, and there's a lot of research now about music and how it impacts seniors. And I remember my dad, he developed dementia in his older years, and he was in a care facility that brought musicians in, and he that was the one thing, he couldn't tell me what he'd had for breakfast that day, but he would go to these groups and sing songs from his childhood that some songs, I mean, and I heard him sing all through my life. Him and my mom used to sing all these songs. They grew up during the wartime, so music was a
Mhm.
huge big deal, right? It got them through all of that. But and he was singing these songs. I'm like, Dad, I have never heard that song before in my life. So it's amazing. Like it occupies a whole different part of the brain, I think, or something.
Yeah, yeah, it does seem to. And not only that, though, it seems to ignite other parts of the brain when it's engaged.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a, I don't remember if I shared it with you or not, but there's this great documentary called Alive Inside. Um, did I share that with you? I can't
You did.
remember.
I haven't
Yeah.
watched it yet, but yeah.
It's profound. Um, I don't think I've watched it like 2 or 3 times now, and I'm like weeping through the whole thing every time. Because right out of the gate, they show these these elderly people, struggling to retain, their lives, their identities, because it's just all slipping away from them for various reasons, including the fact that they're being, sequestered from the rest of society. Um, but they there's just like there's got to be 4 or 5 in the movie, uh, you know documents of these people being introduced to the music from their childhood, with headphones and those little tiny iPods, the I forget what they're called, the little shuffle ones, I guess they're called.
Hmm.
um, and oh, I forget the guy's name, unfortunately, but yeah, Alive Inside, you can find it on YouTube. Documentary of this guy who just decided he was going to go into retirement communities, and interact with people suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, in this way where he's like, "What kind of music do you like to listen to?" And then he loads up one of these iPods with the music that they're into. They put the headphones on, and all of a sudden, like you watch this transformation
Hmm.
happen
Hmm.
instantly for these people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because they're reconnected this music they're reconnecting with this music, and in doing so, they're reconnecting with themselves, their identity, and all of a sudden, like, they're having these memories that they would otherwise never even have. And music is the catalyst.
Mm.
And I actually discovered this movie right around the same time that I started playing in retirement communities. And I started playing in retirement communities specifically for what they call the memory care residents, you know?
Mm.
And so and so that was my first experience playing for retired peoples. Um, and
I guess that's not happening right now, eh?
it's it's not. I mean, I'm still playing shows. I'm playing shows using Zoom.
Oh, good. Yeah.
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 Unfortunately, I had a Christmas Eve show and a New Year's Eve show lined up at a retirement community who just let me know that they've got another positive, so they're not going to be
Hmm.
doing. They're not even doing that because that requires them to gather people together in the same room.
Right. Oh,
Uh,
wow. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
those are out, unfortunately. But yeah, as much as I can this year, I've been performing. I've still been performing using Zoom
Well, and there
over.
was I think there's on your YouTube, Vox Vegana YouTube there, you're out on in the street somewhere, sort of like busking almost in the community. You've done a bit of that over the summer?
Yeah, there were how many times did it? Like maybe two or three times at the same retirement community now that had the cancellations, where I did what I call the serenade gigs, uh, and most of the residents would like stay in the building, and they could come out onto their balconies of their rooms.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
some people came down to watch me, but you know there was the masks and the social distancing and all of that. We
Right.
were, you know, very safe, of course. Um, uh, when the weather was better, I did, yeah, two or three, maybe even four or five of those shows this year.
Well, well, I know from personal experience how important that is for those folks. So you're a hero just even for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, now I know you want to play some music for us, and that's very exciting. So, tell us about, is it The Future is Vegan? You want to play that?
Sure, yeah.
Well,
So this was the song, you know, when I started putting Vox Vegana together and thinking about the fact that you know, I wanted us to be singing on topic with veganism. I went looking for music that was vegan. Like I was like, what is vegan music anyway? Um, and I ended up finding like some really good stuff. Uh, I didn't even know this, but Prince was vegan. Rest in peace. And he wrote this really wonderful song about the animals. Um, and I also remembered, you know, back in must have been the early 90s, PETA put out this really great compilation, and it had this song on it. What was the name of the song? It's called Tame Yourself.
hmm.
And some other really good songs in there, and like Michael Stipe was on there, and just a bunch of other really great musicians got together to do this compilation for PETA. And you know, so I started thinking like, okay, I could probably, you know, create choral arrangements of some of these pieces, but ultimately it seemed to be a good idea to just come up with my own. So I wrote this song called "The Future Is Vegan" for the group, and that's when we had our one and only meeting before the lockdown. We got together and we sang this as a group, and it was, oh, it was so nice. It was so nice to hear like four different voices harmonizing in my space, um, and probably better than what you're going to hear now. But
Oh, don't do that.
this is the this is the piano solo version of "The Future Is Vegan." Do you remember a time in the Garden of Eden,
beautiful. I can imagine with a harmony that would be really a very powerful song indeed. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and there is a recording of it actually, where one of the members of the group, she was able to do some recordings right before the lockdown was complete. She came in and did some tracks, and then she actually sent in one more track after the lockdown. So there is a full 5-part harmony version of that song, which you can find on the Vox Vegana page as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And when you were playing, I was hearkening back to this first moment of realization when your little body put your fingers together and realized you could create sound. I play the piano, but I don't remember ever having a profound experience like that. It like to me, I don't know. To me, it was just this sort of more mechanical. I was pretty good at it and I enjoyed it, but it never sort of became my life, so like from there, when did you write your first song, and how did it evolve from there? Obviously you lived in a family that was able to support you in your quest, and did you have music in the schools, all of that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember I probably the first song I ever wrote. Somewhere I've got a photocopy of it too. Uh, I called Yakety Yak, which there's already a song called Yakety Yak, or it's called what is it called? Don't Talk Back or whatever, some doo-wop song from the 50s.
Right.
Um, and my version of Yakety Yak was even less intelligible. Um, but I didn't start writing, music in any kind of pop structure until I purchased a guitar. Actually, that was a big shifting point for me. Um, that and discovering a book that I call the Beatle Bible, which is this like giant white textbook that's got every song ever recorded by the Beatles, and it's got every part for each one of those songs. It's like the score for every song recorded by the Beatles. And through that book, I discovered something called tab, which is short for tablature, which is what a lot of guitarists use to figure out what to play instead of standard notation. It's just another way to notate music. And through learning how to use tab, I learned how to play Blackbird on the guitar, and then it was all over for me. I became an amateur guitar player, a diehard amateur guitar player. But it was because of learning how to play the guitar and learning how to strum, a handful of different chords, and then sitting down and like learning how to play, Beatles songs and Beck songs and Radiohead songs and Stone Temple Pilots songs. Just any song that I liked, I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to learn how to play that." And if you've got the creative impulse and you spend that much time studying music and the way music is put together, eventually you start to put together your own songs. So that whole process. I bought that guitar. It must have been like right around the turn of the century there, the turn of the millennia. Um, and yeah, that's when that whole process began.
Was
Um,
that the grunge time in Seattle, or was that,
yeah,
yeah?
yeah.
Were you in some bands? And
So interesting. I was definitely affected and influenced by the grunge era of Seattle. I mean, I guess it was other places too, but Seattle takes most of the credit for that particular phenomenon. But I didn't get here until that was long over. Um, so when I showed up, with my post grunge music, I remember even getting a comment. I moved here in, oh, what was that? Must have been about 13 years ago. So what is that? I'm not good with simple math. 2000,
mid 2000s.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, mid 2000s. Um, Yeah, I remember getting a comment from somebody like, "Oh man, where were you like 10 years ago? This this music is good, but it's dated." But yeah, I managed to have a couple of different bands that I was in and out of here in Seattle and back in Chicago before I moved here. Um, and yeah, it took me a while actually. Like I resisted a lot of what I was hearing coming out of Seattle um, up until like about 1994, like right before Kurt Cobain died. Um, I had been resisting, and then I was like, "Oh, wait! I kind of feel this. I kind of understand that. I get the angst here." And a band that I was in Chicago, like I would put on In Utero on the way to rehearsals and just scream along for my warm up on the way to those rehearsals. So so yeah, influenced by grunge for sure. But I missed that train. It was before my time.
Hmm. Okay. Let's see. While we're on the subject of Seattle, you had mentioned in one of our gatherings online about going downtown or going to Capitol Hill. And
Yeah.
between COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement and the response, I would say, to both of those things, we've had a very different response here in Canada that has supported people. I would say much more through the thing. It's not perfect, and we have a lot of the same problems, but it was scary there for a while watching what was going on in the States. And so everybody's staying home a lot, but you ventured off to Capitol Hill, and what happened there?
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, pretty much anybody watching the news knew that among other places in the States, Seattle was uh, Seattle was a war zone. I mean, it literally was just this. There was a lot of tear gas and a lot of mace and a lot of flash bombs, and we watched all of that happen on TV. Those of us that were outside of the action, and I have friends that were there when uh, the that guy who was suspected of being a member of the Proud Boys showed up and shot somebody at one of the protests. Like I have friends that watched that happen.
Wow.
I wasn't there for it. Yeah, I was too scared to go to those protests. I went to one protest. It was like the very first protest that happened in Seattle, and it was very peaceful. Actually, there was just mostly everybody was in their cars. For the most part, everybody was in their cars, and it was just this sort of like parade that happened down Lake City Way. But yeah, after that, that's the very next protest that happened was downtown, and that's when like a couple of cars got set on fire and windows were smashed and stuff like that. Um, and and then most of the action then kind of migrated to Capitol Hill. Not surprisingly, Capitol Hill has always been sort of a hotbed for all kinds of things. Occupy Seattle was in on Capitol Hill, um, and yeah, and you know, a lot of the protesting was happening, and that's right where at some point there was a Seattle the precinct there decided to literally just leave, like they got up and left, and so uh, I don't even remember what they called it now, but basically like Capitol Hill became kind of like oh yeah, they called it the autonomous zone.
Mhm.
Um, and Right, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, and there were literally, I mean, like there was no police presence at all, um, and that was fascinating to me as well. I was like, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, I was curious to go down there for that too, but again, kind of scared because it was just like anything can happen in that kind of scenario, and I have my suspicions that uh, a lot of the crime that took place there was actually, manufactured to discredit and anyway, the kind of things that we'll never probably ever be able to completely know for sure. But I did make it down there. uh what was that, like a couple weeks ago, I guess, uh just to visit a friend of mine who lives on Capitol Hill. And I mean, like he was in his apartment listening to Windows getting smashed a few months ago when all that was going down. um uh he lives right by, what was it, like a BMW or like a Ferrari dealership that's there, and like they took out those windows. And so he got to listen to that. And um anyway, I went down to visit him, and we decided to meet in a park, and wear our masks and do the whole social distancing thing. And uh that was it was interesting to return to Capitol Hill. That park in particular, I remember watching video footage of, like, one of our major newscasters here like took a flash bomb in the face in that park, and it was like literally like you were watching war footage. It was ridiculous. Um, and now that park is uh, it's there's like a huge, like, tent community there. Like it's just, yeah, there's um homelessness and drug usage um and graffiti, like completely covering this fountain that I used to visit 10 years ago that was really pretty, and now it's just uh lots of angry graffiti. I took a couple of pictures. um, and and all of the businesses are, you know even outside of that area, there's like everything's like boarded up, you
Mm.
know
Mm.
um, and and as soon as I got there too, I was like, oh man, I really have to go to the bathroom. And my friend Greg was like, good luck with that. Like none of the businesses are letting anybody in. And I was like, oh wow, okay, so like literally everywhere is a toilet at this point, to paraphrase Abby Hoffman. um uh
Yeah,
it's
as if the we didn't have enough homeless people before COVID and all of this, now, and imagine what it's like trying to live in that situation, right?
Yeah,
And there's no services. And Seattle is one of the more kind of progressive cities in the U.S., I think.
yeah, and yet our homelessness in Seattle is extensive. It's
Yeah.
extensive. um yeah, so that was surreal for me. I mean, to have moved here 13 years ago, when Seattle was kind of a small town, and then to get to a place now, post, you know, the Microsoft boom and the Amazon boom, and the whole tech boom that's happened in Seattle, and how much everything has changed. At some point we had the second most number of like cranes,
Mm.
construction cranes in the world, and the only city that was beating us was Dubai.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, the landscape of Seattle itself is so different than when I moved here.
Mm.
And there's way more people and way more cars and way more homelessness. And um, the things that most of what I loved about Seattle is gone. It's just
Mm.
gone. I came from Chicago, and Seattle looks a lot more like what I remember Chicago looking like now than it did when I first got here.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. So how about you then? Back to you and your music, and
Yeah.
how are you surviving with COVID? You've got enough work. So the work that you get, you used to work for School of Rocks. You were a music
I did.
teacher.
Yeah, I
Are
did.
you know? Are you being a music teacher or a composer, or how are you surviving?
So I would say most of my money comes from teaching, actually. I've been doing, obviously all of my lessons have been online.
And how's
Um,
that? Is that's doable?
it is, it's there are certain concessions that you have to make in the format. Uh, I can't really accompany anybody anymore because there's
Mhm.
that time delay that happens there. Um, so we have to work around that. Uh, a couple of my students have not the best internet, you know, especially because everybody's at home, so everybody's using the internet. Like their parents are in meetings, and uh, so that can be kind of tricky. Um, but there it, it's doable. I probably couldn't cite anything now specifically, but there are certain advantages that I discovered in teaching lessons online that I didn't expect to discover. Um,
Like what?
so yeah, I'm trying to think.
Like you don't have to go anywhere.
Well, you don't have to go anywhere. It's true. um, and even with that time delay factor, like if I'm like playing a scale that I want my student to sing or something, right? That like they're gonna hear that note that I play like a second after I play it, which means they're still hearing it and using it as a reference and singing along in real time for them. Um, but I'm hearing them singing delayed, right? So by the time it gets back to me, uh, I'm only hearing their voice, right? So in a way, like it makes it easier for me to know if they're accurate or not because they're not, if that makes any sense.
Right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, cool.
So that like interesting. We're all doing our best to look for the silver linings of this crazy situation.
Yeah, we all kind of have to, right? I mean,
You have to.
we are creatures of survival. Survival is what
Yeah,
we do. So, all of us,
absolutely.
all species, we all want to survive, right? We all want to live and breathe and survive, and
Yes,
we
we
do.
do.
We all do that the best we can, and vegans do that for ourselves, and then we reach out and try to make a difference for the lives of the animals too. So the
Yeah.
music that you're bringing is wonderful, and you've written an international vegan anthem, and you're looking the last I couldn't believe it when I saw that you had scored all the different, the alto and the soprano and the different. I mean, you've written an orchestra piece basically. I think a composition there. And so how's that project coming along?
Uh, it's unfortunately it's not. I put it. I posted it on the Vox Vegana page, and I'm also one of the other wonderful communities that I discovered this year is a Facebook community called Vegan Music Makers. Um, and this is, some of the collaborations that I've done this year have been uh, with people that I've met through that site. There's this amazing guitar player who lives in Belgium. We're actually getting ready to do yet another collaboration. We did a piece together called Commonality.
I
Um,
saw that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, the genres, you mix up genres too.
It's
It
true. Yeah, it's true
yeah.
that I like all different kinds of music. The commonality is definitely harder than I usually listen to these days. It's more akin to like the Aaron driving to rehearsal back in Chicago kind of
Rock and
vibe.
roll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
it's
yeah.
very heavy. Yeah,
And
but
with images, who did the video collaboration for that?
Yeah, that was Dan Dualma as well. The guitar player who lives in Belgium, he put that video together as well. And there are actually two versions of it because I was like, maybe we should have one, for people that don't necessarily need to see that stuff, like so like the vegans can listen to it too, right? Even though, mostly, I mean, the truth of the situation is like, and I've had this discussion with other people on the the vegan music makers page as well, that like, it's great that we're creating this music and we're sharing it with other vegans, and we're all helping each other out and supporting each other in that way. But ultimately, you know the reason that I'm making vegan music is for non-vegans to listen to, you know um, to get the message to the people that need to hear it, right? So for me, that's my goal. My goal is to make music that is accessible and has appropriate production values for a larger market that extends beyond the boundaries of just vegans and vegan music makers. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, as far as the anthem, uh, you know, I I'm not sure where to go next to promote it more. I put the pitch up on the Vegan Music Maker page. I put it up on Vox Vegana. I think probably the next step is to just start contacting people individually and be like, "Hey, I really like what you're doing. Do you want to sing my song, please?" You'll be the first.
So you're basically, are you looking for people to play different instruments, or you're just looking for people to sing different parts?
Right.
Yeah.
So uh, Vox Vegana started out as like strictly a choral thing. The anthem is more of a choral piece. Uh, so for that particular project, yeah, mostly looking for singers. But if somebody came to me and was like, "What if I, put a bass line underneath that?" I'd be like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do that."
Okay, cool.
But Vox Vegana, my slogan has sort of evolved into um, uh, many different genres, one very specific topic.
Right on. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of this now. I'm
Well,
wondering,
that went fast.
yeah, it does, you know. I'm wondering if I'm wondering if you could share. It's the holiday season, and it's a different holiday for everybody this year.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would talk about maybe some of your favorite food, whether it's Christmassy
Hmm.
type seasonal food or other food. What are some of your favorite things to eat?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, um, I, when it gets to be the holiday season for me, that means tofurkey. That means the tofurkey feast. And I've had I've probably personally put away like at least five of them this year, all on my own. But I invited my brother over a couple of times, and I'll do the whole thing, uh, tofurkey, and then I cook it with like Brussels sprouts and onions and sweet potatoes. And then I'll make mashed potatoes on the side. And the tofurkey feast comes with this like really, really delicious gravy. Um, and sometimes, depending upon which package you buy, it'll have like dessert in there. Mine came with this like chocolate cheesecake, and it's all like totally vegan. So yeah, I love tofurkey, and I love the basically the traditional Thanksgiving feast with the cranberry sauce and the pies and all of that stuff. Just make it vegan and I'll eat it. Um, uh, and then you want to know about like other vegan food I like, or
Sure. Is
um
there and there are a lot of vegan, I mean,
yeah.
interestingly, the vegan restaurants in Victoria are doing really well through COVID.
Oh really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's good to hear.
Yeah, I think
Because
people are catching on that this is the safest food source. It just even in terms of COVID, and there's a lot of people trying to get healthier and all the rest of it. So from what I understand, all our local vegan places are doing really well. Is that the same in Seattle, do you think? Or do you know?
sadly no.
Ah,
I've been to, I've been to pick up food at my favorite vegan Thai restaurant a couple of times. But another one of my favorites is called uh, No Bones Beach Club, and they're like this tiki themed vegan restaurant with delicious food and cocktails if you're into that. But they had to close up,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, there've been several actually, all kinds of restaurants closing up, but the vegan ones
Mm.
in particular.
Hmm.
There's a great vegan grocery store called Vegan Haven. They donate all of their money to Pig's Peace Sanctuary, and they're like completely volunteer run. They haven't been open this whole time. Um, so yeah, we're struggling.
Do you know, I mean, I have to say again, Canada's not perfect, but I know the government has an ongoing wage subsidy for small businesses who are unable to meet all of their expenses. So the government has is basically printing money in a big way. And I don't know, some people say that's just going to bite us in the butt, but I don't really see how. I mean, to me, it makes sense. Like you put money in people's hands and they spend it, right? And that's what keeps the economy going. And you support small businesses and they're able to employ people and that puts money in their hands and then it just stays, the money keeps circulating and whereas what we're seeing happen in the US now and what I'm hearing about is that small businesses are going under and then the big corporate Walmarts and Amazons are basically taking over everything, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like.
Wow. Well, we got to shop local when we can. I mean, you can still go online and buy from local. A lot of them have moved, to online businesses, and I think it's really up to us to, whether we're vegan or not, support those local vegan and that have vegan offering businesses. I think, yeah. I still advise caution in regard to food because we know that COVID travels on animal packaging. So I don't know. Personally, I'm not interested in getting vegan food from a non-vegan restaurant. You know, and I like to cook, anyways. I'd rather just cook.
Yeah,
Do you like to cook?
yeah.
Yeah,
I do like to cook. Yeah, absolutely.
that makes a big
And
difference.
usually I'm not cooking tofurkey. If I'm being entirely honest, like uh, whenever I consume too much of that like plant-based meat products, like I feel kind of gummed up inside.
Well,
Um,
it's gluten, right? The gluten,
yeah,
yeah, the gluten.
it doesn't really agree with me that much. So I try to keep it lentils and rice and beans and greens and all the good stuff, all the stuff that your body's just like, yes please.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you can make, with the right spices, you can make all that stuff so delicious. So
it is absolutely true. Okay, so well, as we wrap, then maybe is there anything else that you want to mention before we go?
uh, you know um I've just been I've been thinking a lot lately about the fact that I am a new vegan, uh, compared to a lot of the people that I know, even in the Vystopia, especially in the Vystopia Anonymous group. We've got members that have been doing it for decades, and you know, um, for me, since this is kind of a new transition for me, like I'm still trying to find my footing. I'm still trying to find like the best way for me to exist with Vystopia, um, the best way for me to bring the message to other people, um, and you know where I've landed lately is just that it's my belief that most people who are not yet vegan uh, just don't even really know what's going on. They don't know. They might have a suspicion, like my brother, making that suggestion to me. Like he probably read that somewhere, but I personally feel that until you've really seen the Holocaust that's happening, behind closed doors, for the most part, you don't know. You don't really know. And I would just like to make a plea to everybody who has a desire to know the truth and um, and create a better world for everybody, to just bear witness, to see it for yourself, because we have amazing, incredible, seemingly fearless activists who have risked their lives and certainly their livelihood to show us what's happening. And the very least we could do is see what they're showing us.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I would just, I would like to make that appeal to everybody who hasn't borne witness, to bear witness, to go watch Earthlings, to go watch Dominion, to know for yourself, to really know for yourself, not think you know, but really know.
That's beautiful. That's great advice. Yeah. And it does it changes everything once you know. It's liberating. It's liberating because then we can absolutely refuse to participate in that anymore at all, ever, never, ever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. And you're going to play another song for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna play one more song on a much lighter note. I'm going to play a song called "Young at Heart." Um, I unfortunately can't remember who authored this song, but it was made popular by Frank Sinatra. And this is one of the ones that I play for my retirement community fans. And it goes like this. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. For it's hard, you will find, to be narrow of mind if you're young at heart. You can go to extremes with impossible schemes and laugh as your dreams fall apart at the seams. And life gets more exciting with each passing day. Love is either in your heart or on its way. Don't you know that it's worth every treasure on earth to be young at heart? For as rich as you are, it's much better by far to be young at heart. And if you should survive to 105, look at all you'll derive out of being alive. And here is the best part, you'll have a head start if you are among the very young at heart. And if you should survive to 155, look at all you'll derive out of being alive. And here is the best part, you'll have a head start if you are among the very young at heart.
That's lovely. Thank you, Aaron.
My pleasure.